In many of my videos, I talk about our oppressors this, our oppressors that. And the main reason why I start off majority of my videos that way is because I like to call it out the way it is. And it's really hard for a lot of people to pinpoint where the oppression is because there's no chains on our wrists and our ankles or anywhere on us. And because of that, we don't understand how we're being oppressed. And the real source of it is we're being oppressed through our perspective. There's a group of greedy and manipulative people who have been able to sow enough chaos into the world and into every person's general form of perspective to give them that base. And that's the base of life is full of chaos. And we tend to follow that as part of our lives as the general population. And that's one of the biggest points that I talk to people about. And that's why I ask people, especially lately, do you think world peace is possible? And I typically start off with this majority of the time because it's important for me to figure out what people think and why they think it. And to summarize majority of the conversations, many say yes and many say no. And the ones that say yes will have like reasons why they think it's possible, but majority of the ones that say no will base their perspective on the general population, which they think is chaotic or divided. And that's when I start talking to people more and more about it, because I want them to understand what I learned from talking to so many strangers about this specific subject, which is generally that the average person wants to live in peace. And the same average person thinks that we don't have it because of the average person. So within that mental contradiction that the general person lives in is the oppression, because we live without expectations of others. And because we live that way, we are unable to cross the threshold into changing the way the world is. For example, we don't have world peace because we think others either don't want it, don't know how to do it, or aren't capable of doing it. And because we live within that general sense of contradictive lifestyles of thinking, we don't ever get to the point with people in general. We don't go around asking people it. We don't go around talking about it. We don't choose to change the way we live because we expect others not to. And that's why I started doing this, because I believed the same thing at some point. I believed that the general person did not like the general person. And I was worried about it. I was irritated by it. I was made sad by it. And I couldn't accept that that was reality. I wanted to understand why that is. I wanted to understand, why do people feel this way? Why do people treat each other this way? What is everybody's issue? And I quickly learned, just by going from stranger to stranger to stranger, conversation after conversation, and asking them like different variety of questions just to really understand what they think, how they feel, I learned right away that the average person does want it. They does want to live in world peace. They do generally like people, and they would enjoy that life instead of what is right now. And Then as that went on, and I talked to more and more people, and I started realizing, hey, the average person is on board because I'm talking to them. I'm having genuine conversations about the situation, and I'm really learning a lot from them. I'm learning what the average person really thinks and really feels. And the more we learn about each other, the more we realize what we're actually capable of, what kind of world we actually want to be in, live in, have our families in. And the more likely we are to be able to unite in a sense of general direction, change the world, work together to maintain it, and actually start establishing a sense of world peace. A genuine, well thought out, well placed effort, collective, a collective general sense of will from everyone, that everybody puts forth their time and energy, and that we see it come to fruition. That we no longer live thinking poorly of each other, that we no longer live thinking as everybody else being the reason and using that as an excuse. Because all of it is really generally limited. We have been put on these mental chains that have generally limited us as people to accept the life that is instead of pursue the life that could be. For everyone, not just as individuals, but collectively for everyone. You know, they've mass produced this idea through our general sense of perception to seek out danger, and then they've made us think the world is dangerous, and that's why, like, I always bring up these points when I talk to strangers, and I have them really, like, take a step back and look. When was the last time someone tried to assault you? When was the last time someone tried to rob you? And depending where you live, the situation changes. But for the majority of people, it's most likely never, once, or twice max. And that's for the general person. We can see that the world isn't what we're told it is. We can all just take a step back, take a minute to collect our thoughts, and really engage with strangers about what can change. What can change in the near future and the far future for us to be able to execute an idea of living in a better world without the greedy and manipulative at the helm, always feeding the general population these terrible ideas, these terrible perspectives where they're like, oh, these people are bad, all these people are bad, oh no, these people are bad too, everybody has to be careful. That's literally all they want for everyone. It's all they've ever wanted. The greedy manipulative throughout entire human history have always wanted the same thing: division and power. Division for the general population and power for themselves. And what has it done? It has literally made nothing. It has amounted to almost nothing. Yeah, they got more power. And what do they use it for? To be greedy and manipulative. It's an endless situation that they can't even see past. They've put themselves on such a pedestal that has blinded them to how irrelevant it is to have all the power and do nothing for everyone. That has to be the most irrelevant action that one can take. to gather all the resources possible, to gather all the power they can possibly muster, and do nothing for everyone, and claim some sense of grandeur, all just to meet as irrelevant as possible. There's nothing. It did nothing for anyone ever, and where we're headed, it's doing nothing for them again. It's irrelevant. And that's why I continuously go out and talk to people, stranger after stranger, sharing many of the points I share about how nothing is holding us all back from working together except for each other's thoughts of each other. We can gain more the day we decide to work together. Because, yeah, it won't be easy. Yeah, it'll be pretty difficult. Yeah, it'll be a lot of hard work. But at the end of the day, it happens. We did it, you know. Once we actually achieve it, it'll be done. It won't be easy. It won't be fast. It'll take a lot of effort. But living like this takes more effort. Collectively, living like this takes the most effort. Everybody just grinding through it as these irrelevant people pursue more power, pursue more irrelevance over and over again, generation after generation. They've simply become more and more irrelevant, more and more blinded by their pursuit of irrelevance. And that's why I always try to tell people, if you want to see things change, strangers have to start talking. Because once the strangers start talking, and it starts with one stranger talking to another, then 4 strangers talking to another, then 8, so on and so forth, the world will be able to start talking. And with that, all of this division will start ending, and we can start making the world where we all want to be, that we can all be a part of, that we are glad to exist in, that we don't have to grind through. We can have a world worth living in, worth working for, worth existing, worth its weight in gold. And it only takes strangers to start talking. Because if our oppressors want to divide us, then that means the opposite is their fear.